Hello, let's talk about this question. It's called Dreamoon and Stairs. The question is Dreamoon wants to climb up a stairs. It has n steps. He can climb either one or two steps at each time. And Dreamoon or Dreamon or Dreamoon, however you want to pronounce it, wants to make sure that the number of moves he makes, or the number of moves he makes, is a multiple of the integer m, which we're also given in the input. We have to find out what's the minimal number of moves he can make. That also satisfies the condition about the number of moves being a multiple of m. Our inputs are n and m. N is the number of steps, m is the number that we want to make sure the moves is a multiple of, and we just have to print out a single integer, which will be the minimal number of moves. That also satisfies the multiplication or multiple condition. If we can't find that number, or the setup does not allow us to have that number, we print out a -1. We can think about this question in the way that's given to us, although that's not how I will be implementing it. It says for the first sample, the example is 10 and 2, where 10 is the number of steps and 2 is the number that we have to find the multiple of. Our character could climb the steps in 6 moves, like that. So it can be 2, 2, 2, 2, and then 1, 1. The smallest or the minimum number of steps or moves that Dreamoon could make is 5. But since 5 is not a multiple of 2, we have to break one of the 2's into a 1 and a 1 to make sure that the total number of moves is 6. And that will also be the minimum number of moves. In order to do this question, I first tried to essentially replicate an array of some sort, which did not go as planned, although I do think that the solution might work. After doing some research, I found out that there is an easier way to do it, and that's the code that I will show you for this question. We will obviously be inputting our variables that we have been given, n and m. Once we have done that, we will initialize the variable that we're calling minimum moves or min moves. As we can see, the minimum number of moves our character can make will be essentially 10 plus 1 divided by 2, or n plus 1 divided by 2, because the maximum or the biggest step our character can make is 2 steps. So we will initialize minimum moves as n plus 1 divided by 2. And in our worst case scenario, we will have all of these numbers as 1, but even after we've done all of that, our multiple wouldn't have been satisfied. But that also shows that the maximum length of the array that we're thinking about, we're not implementing the array, but the maximum length of the array would be n, because when all of these values are 1s, that's when we know that we have exhausted all possibilities, which is something that we will be using while we write our while statement. We want to make sure that minimum moves is less than or equal to n, because if it's more than n, we know that we've gone out of bounds and the solution does not exist. And while we're looping through this while loop, we will check if minimum moves modulo m, which is 2 and 5 in these cases, modulo m equals 0. If it is, we will output minimum moves And since after this part we don't need the code to run anymore, we'll do a return 0. However, like we saw here, we would have to break up the number 2 into two ones. When we do that, the length of the array increases by 1, which is what we will be simulating with minimum moves plus plus. Because when we're breaking the number 2 into 1 and 1, our array that we are assuming is called minimum moves increases in size by 1, and that is what we're checking every time we run with the while loop as well. After we have done all of this, we've run our while loop, and this condition is still not satisfied. We will know that there is no possible solution for this question, and at that time we will output -1 as we were told. That is it for the question. Let's see if this runs. Let's run that, and we'll just be using the two input examples that we're given. Let's first write 10 and 2. We're expecting a 6. We do get a 6. That's good. Let's try the second question. This is 3 and 5. We're expecting a -1. And we do get a -1. The reason for the -1 here is essentially the maximum length of the array that we're imagining would be 3 in this case, which would be one step, one step, one step. But the multiple number that we are given to satisfy is 5. So since 5 is, or 3 is not divisible by 5, or any of the numbers below 5 is not divisible by 5, we'll know that the solution doesn't exist, and we output a -1. That is it for the code. Let's just run this on Codeforces to see if it actually works. There we go. We do get a positive outcome. 62 milliseconds, 100 kilobytes in memory. If you find a better solution, let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching this video.